Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tales from a Sports Tragic. I have a very special guest today, Amit Kamath. I've known him for a while. I knew him when he used to write for the Hindustan Times, if I'm not wrong. And I know that Amit is a news editor at the First Post now. So, welcome, Amit. Welcome to the show over here.
Hey, thanks, Aniket. This is great to catch up with you this way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, lockdowns made us not meet us in person, each other in person for a while. So I just thought I'll catch up in this way. And for everyone listening, for everyone watching, Amit's one of my personal favorites in the way that he's not just a sports reporter, but he puts in a lot of research into his articles. I read a bunch of things that he writes about the NBA, to be honest, and Olympic sports. So I've been in awe of his writing, of his reporting, things that he puts together, and that's really something which was kind of a point that I made in my head when I was kind of putting down invitees for this, that I would have Amit on it. And thank you so much, Amit, for featuring on this.
That's great to know that somebody actually reads my writing. Even to be honest, even my family does not read my writing.
I mean, yeah, when I used to be a journalist as well, I don't think my father ever read what I used to write.
Exactly.
He for the longest time he didn't believe that I was writing because he had a he had a degree in English and he never thought that my English was up to the mark. Just to communicate, leave aside being published in any form. So I remember the first book I worked on was in 2009. I think it came out, and my father just didn't believe it. He just refused to acknowledge the fact that his son was had put out something which was published. But yeah, that's with families. But yeah, I mean, talk me through the initiation into sports. As you would understand, it's about how you have been a sports fan more than what you've done in sports. But talk me through that, Amit.
I think my earliest memories of sport is basically going to the neighbor's house to watch India's cricket games. Yeah. So it's not as if we could not have gotten cable, but my mother was staunchly opposed because she knew that the day we would get cable, I would stop everything and just watch TV all the time. So we never got that. So my earliest memories were me and my dad sneaking out of the house and going into our neighbor's house just to watch cricket games. So yeah, it kind of built from that. My dad used to talk about, so we are from Karnataka. So my dad used to talk about B.R. Vishwanath a lot. And these were the days when the Dravids, the Kumbles, the Srinaths were still in the Indian team. So he used to take a lot of pride in watching these guys, from his home state do well for the national team. So that was kind of my initiation into the sport.
But that's that's kind of typical that in our country, especially in our generation, we kind of initiate uh, our journey or our foray into sports with cricket. And just following you or talking to you over the last few years, I figured that you're also a lot into other sports. So how did you branch out into other sports? What sports kind of caught up with you over time?
Uh, when I started with my first job, I think I was in Free Press Journal. Uh, that time, I desperately wanted to join the Free Press Journal's sports desk, and they didn't have a vacancy for me. It was just a very small team, so they put me on the general desk. And I think I worked there for 2.5 years, and at no point was I given. I think except for 1 or 2 days when I got the privilege to make the sports page. Besides that, there was no opportunity for me to work there. But that is when I kind of realized that if I want to actually get in this, I can't be doing cricket because the two people that were there on the sports desk, they were big cricket buffs. Like they knew everything about cricket. And I was like, if I want to distinguish myself, I need to also understand other sports that happen. And which is how I kind of, started um, veering away from or steering clear from cricket because I knew that you throw a rock in India and it'll hit at least 10 people who know everything about cricket. So that is how I kind of moved to other sports. And then I think my proper initiation into into sports happened when I got into midday, which was my second job. And there I was just doing every other sport apart from cricket. I don't think I touched any cricket story in the 3 years that I was there.
But while you kind of as a journalist you would follow sports and you'd go and report on things, and I think for all of us that journey from the desk to the field kind of is not is not something which comes very naturally, at least now. You're not initially sent to cover a lot of events, right? But apart from reading or writing about things, how do you also would describe your journey of following sports in general? When did you start watching a lot of tennis on TV or basketball on TV, things like that? And did
I
anyone
think
in particular or any team in particular kind of got you hooked into a particular sport?
yeah. Now that you asked me, I remember when I was very early in college. That time for some strange reason, it might have been because they were winning a lot back then. I started falling head over heels with Arsenal, and like every love story, it led nowhere because
Hmm.
it's just been like a decade of hurt or things like that, to the point where now I can't even bear to watch an Arsenal game live,
Hmm.
because you just kind of are you realize what is going to happen before it actually happens. So yeah, so that's how I got started. I started watching a lot of football games because of this Arsenal generation that was there, the Thierry Henrys, the Dennis Bergkamps, the Vieiras, the Pires, Ljungbergs, all of them playing together on a pitch. It was very attractive to watch. So that was how I kind of got into sports like football, and that's how my journey began. Actually.
And other sports as well. I mean, if you had to list down, as in sports that you really keenly follow, and not just for work but just generally. I mean, I don't remember when I was needed to write a report on the US Open, but I would always be up in the wee hours of the morning trying to watch a game at the US Open. But I mean, things that you just follow out of work as well. Which sports would you list down as your top three most followed sports?
This might come across as weird, but I like to watch shooting a lot.
Yeah.
Um, there's no plausible reason. Sometimes I don't even write about it. I just watch it because it's such a calm sport. It's not a regular adrenaline pumping fist pumps and whatever chest pumps, all of that. So I like to watch that a lot. Whenever I get the time, I do watch football a lot, and pretty much any sport that I get on TV. Here. I watch basketball a lot. I watch NBA pretty much whenever I can.
And very, very interesting that you mentioned shooting as the first one over there. But I mean, having read a lot about shooting in general, and it seems to be a lot more complicated than what we see on TV, right? So when you watch shooting on TV, do you go through those emotions yourself? Because people who'd be engrossed in it would perhaps understand it a little more than the general masses. But does shooting intrigue and engage you like, say, a basketball or a football would during competition?
I mean, maybe it's because of what I do for a living. That is why I'm so engrossed when I watch a shooting game, because I understand the things that happen off the outside the camera. Because in shooting, whenever we see live telecasts or whatever happens on TV or on YouTube channels, it's only the finals that you see, the top eight that you see. But by the time they've reached the finals, there are, I think, hundreds of people that are there in the qualification, and which is where the real action actually happens. Because there have been so many times when your top shooters don't even make it to the finals because they've had like one series of bad shots, 100 shots that have gone awry or something like that. So a lot of these, the nuances of shooting is actually somewhere else. It's not what you see in the screen. I mean, these shooters, if you sit down with them and you ask them, why did you shoot a 9 instead of a 10, they'll tell you that, I could not control my breathing. I could not, I did not shoot between heartbeats, things like that. Of all the athletes that I've met, I think some of the most thinking people have been shooters. So, which is why I think it is.
Yeah.
Also, I think one reason why I like it more than everything else is I look at the sport and I feel that, I can actually be doing that. From experience, I can tell you there is no other sport that I look at and I say, yeah, I could be doing that. No big deal.
I'll come back to that point because that's a point that I've thought about a lot as well. But the previous point of talking to shooters and understanding this sport. And it does seem like that because it does not seem like a childhood obsession of yours. Like shooting was definitely not something that you grew up as in looking at on the TV screen. But as you have met through your work a lot of shooters, and if you could, give some instances of shooters narrating incidents which kind of would make you think, oh, this is something which is happening right in front of me, but I just didn't think of it like this before. Like when I first read Abhinav Bindra's autobiography, which was
Right.
written by Rohit Bishnat, I was blown away by what happens in the making of a champion shooter. So if you can narrate some of those incidents, if you don't mind, of course, sharing
Yeah.
them with us.
So,
Yeah.
so Bindra was a 10-point air rifle shooter, right? But if you really want to see a shooting event which is absolutely insane, it's like running a marathon on steroids, you should check out the 50-meter rifle 3P event, which is where the real action happens, which is where these guys, between the three positions, these guys are basically are engineers. They will like take out, whip off their clothes, their jackets are unfastened, things like that. They have to make changes to their rifles and all of them on the fly because I think there's like a 7-minute window between the two for changeovers. So in that 7-minute windows, they are pretty much doing everything. They are like, removing their mats, putting like a knee roll when they're doing the kneeling position thing. All of that has to be done on fly. And, shooting is this thing where you have to also control your breathing and your heartbeat, because if it is too elevated, then your shooting is, it'll affect in your shooting. So I think I remember sitting down once with Anjum Muddil, who is, I think, yeah, she's going to represent India at the 50-meter rifle 3P event.
Yeah.
And her coach, Dipali Deshpande. And when you sit down with them, when you see 50-meter rifle 3P, you will see that it's a very complicated and it's a very nuanced sport. But when you sit with them and talk to them, that is when you understand that, there is so much happening in the background. There is so much that a shooter is going through while they are in the middle of the competition, that you just don't understand, even if the commentator is telling you what is happening, or you can see on the TV what is happening. So it's not an incident per se. I don't think they've probably told me an incident of what has happened, but then it's the technical, small, finer nuances and details that they tell you, which is quite a lot.
I mean, I can relate to that. I think it was just before the London Games, and I was doing a small project for NRAI, and people used to talk about all of these things in the Qutub, close to Qutub, basically over here in Delhi. And I always thought, and I don't know if it makes sense to you, but this, just before competition, during competition, I think can make for a very pulsating sports documentary if someone was to make it well. If someone was to make it well, someone was to make it narrated by champion shooters telling what happens, add drama to it, I think it would perhaps make for a killer documentary.
It would. In fact, that's what I'm saying. If you
Yeah.
get a 50-meter rifle 3P, that whole final that happens, I think it's a 45-minute window.
Yeah.
I don't think any other shooting events, the final happens for 45 minutes, but 50-meter 3P happens for that long. And in those three positions, there is so much going on your screen and in the minds and hearts of shooters that it would make for a very good documentary.
I'm sure. I'm sure, man. But very fascinating to hear about the nuances as well. And I think that's something which a job in sports writing or sports reporting would kind of bring about, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a good part of writing about sports.
yeah. I mean, and see, the thing is, honestly, to be fair, as a sports journalist, you've had your fair share of best karna hai, 100% dena hai, things like that. The stock codes, whatever people throw at you because they've not thought about it. So talking to shooters that way is always an enriching experience. So you understand much more about their sport and much more about the athletes.
क्या हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना कि औपचारिक आंसर मत देना, मतलब कि
Yeah,
हाँ
yeah.
the game went very well and we tried our best. But yeah, fair enough. I'll take you back to the previous point, by the way, because I have put in a lot of thought behind if I can be an Olympian. Okay, and this is
Right.
obviously much after I could have possibly competed in any event, actually, or aspired to, for that matter. But So shooting is your choice, isn't it? Like shooting, you think is an event that
Yeah,
you can crack. I went the
hopefully.
more yeah, I went the more methodical way, and I thought, what are the events that India gets an IOC quota for just for being there? You know, so I contemplated curling. I contemplated,
Uh,
yeah, just
Dude,
sorry,
but
go on.
Indians don't. I don't think Indians get a quota in curling anyway. I don't
No, no,
think
no.
there has
I know
been an
that. I
Indian.
know that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
know that. It's just that I kind of went the full spectrum that winter sports might be the easiest, right? Because we don't really put out anyone over there. But I
yeah.
realized that I would perhaps be like very, very pathetic at even skating for that matter to take up a winter sport. But yeah, one day, man, one day I'll figure out some event to try and
Yeah,
qualify the Olympic Games. Yeah.
yeah.
But have you ever indulged in shooting yourself? Because I know Rajavardhan Rathore started shooting at 31 and he was an Olympic medalist within a decade.
Abhishek, who's I think the world number one, if I'm not mistaken, currently in
Yeah,
10-meter air pistol. He
yeah.
started very late. I think last Olympic cycle he was probably not a shooter.
Oh,
And
okay.
people keep calling him this hobby shooter thing, which I think he's pretty bored by now, that nickname. But it is kind of true. Like he wasn't a shooter many years ago. And some of the younger generation, your Manu Bakars, your Saurabh Chaudhry's, I don't think they were like that seriously into shooting at Rio 5 years back.
No, I think what sets apart the younger generation though, Amit, and that's just what I feel, and you can correct me if
Yeah,
you think differently. But I just feel that when you're younger, you have lesser distractions, right? I mean, you don't the this whole cycle that we get engrossed in where we have to work and we have to make a living, and I mean we just have more distractions when we are say late 20s and early
to be
30s.
fair, I think right now Manu is in Croatia,
Yeah.
and Manu is studying for a CBSE exams, which the sports ministry had to basically get postponed because they were supposed to kind of overlap with her Olympic prep. I'm
No, of
pretty
course, I
sure
mean,
even yeah.
yeah,
So
go
they
on.
have their own set of things going on in the background to distract them for it.
That's
So
true.
who is
I
to say?
just, yeah, maybe I'm trying to kind of make myself
No,
feel a
no,
little
I
better.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, these guys, I think one of the things that the older generation keeps saying is they don't have the pressure of expectations, or they don't feel that sense of, that whole expectation or all of that. They don't understand it so well. They're like, I'm going to go, I'm going to shoot, and these are the scores that I need. If I don't do well, I still have an Olympic coming after 4 years or 3 years now. So I think that way, at least, there is that lesser pressure of sorts.
Yeah, fair enough. I just feel that if you're a hobby shooter, sorry, I'm just lending that term because you brought it up, but if you're a hobby shooter at say 35,
Yeah.
you also have far lesser expectations on yourself. You're just happy being there. You would perhaps not be bogged down that you're at the Olympic Games, you need to medal or things like that. Maybe, but I mean, obviously, what happens at the highest level is completely
Yeah.
beyond what I can possibly gauge. But yeah, very interesting, man. But over time, now that you've covered a bunch of sports events as well, if you could list down, say, the best experiences of covering sports events, the most unique ones, it could be a small tournament somewhere, and I know you have been there to cover NBA games as well. But talk me through some of the best experiences.
I think sometime in 2018, I remember being in the stadium of Alaves. It's this very tiny club which was basically hosting Real Madrid back then. And if I'm not mistaken, so basically the whole idea was I'd gone there on a La Liga, on an invitation from La Liga to come watch a bunch of matches. And Alaves versus Real Madrid was one of them at Alaves' home ground. And I think Alaves ended up beating Real Madrid. And so I was the only Indian journalist there, but besides me, there were a bunch of other journalists from other countries. So we were like a contingent of, I think, 14 odd journalists. And we were basically in the middle of their ultras. And I don't think I saw that those fans sit for even a minute of that 90 odd minutes. Even when their team wasn't really playing that attractive football, they were just, they were just regular, like whatever. They were just trying to scrape together a win, right? but that was, I think, in some ways cathartic, because here you are in the middle of a team which is playing out of their skins to beat somebody which can basically buy your own, which basically buys players with the money it takes to pay the salary of your entire infrastructure. So I saw that live from the stands, and it was like an experience that I can never imagine, because it was insane. The amount of energy that it takes for 90 minutes for these guys to keep jumping up and down and screaming at the top of their lungs. And we were right in the middle of it. Like, we were just surrounded by this.
Nice.
And the good part about it is, so there was also the corporate boxes that they had basically reserved for us. So we were sitting there for the first 5 minutes, I think. And then they came and said that, hey, do you want to go sit with the ultras? And we said, sure, why not? It sounds like fun. And that, I would say, is the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Yeah, of course, there's no better feeling than to sit with fans. I mean, to be amongst fans, and I really relish that. Actually, I really make it a point that events that I'm not working in, I go and sit. I mean, I buy a ticket, go and sit amongst the fans. It's amazing. I kind of miss that while working in sports. But also, you mentioned Spain, and I brought up the NBA. But are there things that you have gotten back from these places which you kind of I see a lot of things in that room of yours, but are there things that you would bring back? Are there things that you have like souvenirs from these places?
Yeah. So I don't know how this started, but over the 10, 11 years that I've been a journalist, I've gotten into this habit of, trying to make sure that I have a slice of history every time something momentous happens. I have no idea what I will do with them eventually, but then I still keep collecting them, right? So I have at, at, at a few World Cups from now, I think in the Brazil World Cup, when Germany whooped them 7-1. So I remember getting a journalist from there, making him send me, newspaper articles and cutouts of the front pages, because the idea was someday I will like frame them. So I don't know if you can see
Oh, brilliant.
it
Yeah,
clearly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I have a bunch of those with me.
Oh,
I think this
amazing.
was one of the most iconic ones, where it was
This
like,
is this is a great one, actually. Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
this was the one where you can just see the scoreboard and complete darkness in Brazil.
yeah.
So I have a bunch of these actually, all of them from that same World Cup. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see it.
I can actually. Yeah.
All of these are like double spreads and things like that.
So this looks
Yeah.
this looks brilliant. Yeah. This would make for a
So,
fantastic museum someday. Yeah.
So the idea is someday I would like to frame these. I don't know when I will. Besides this, I think so. When I was there in US to watch the NBA finals, I think this was the I saw the last game that LeBron played for Cavaliers. Uh, it was a 4-0 wipeout at the hands of the Warriors, and from there again I picked up a bunch of these things that I'm hoping to someday frame. But
Nice,
yeah,
nice,
whenever
lovely.
I
Actually,
get the
yeah, yeah.
so I have a
And you
bunch of
mentioned that.
these. Sorry.
Oh, brilliant. This is amazing. Yeah. I have a hobby of collecting posters as well, by the way. I wish I could show them to you sometime, but I carry them around wherever I go. And I pick up posters of these events or these historic things. You can see some of them behind me actually. Yeah.
I can.
Yeah, they're all on the wall. Yeah. And it's pretty much my whole
Yeah,
house. But
but the thing
sorry.
is, so I have all of these. So this I think
Yeah.
was something that I helped produce, because I was in
Okay.
midday back when Tendulkar had retired. So
Yeah.
we put out this special edition. So yeah, so a bunch of these actually, like the time when Cruyff passed away.
Yeah.
So the Guardian came out with a special edition of it.
Answer.
So
Yeah.
things like this.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing it. This is amazing. You mentioned the trip to Spain as well, by the way. Did you pick something up from Spain, which you kind of hold dear to, things that you?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the thing is, for all of these, I actually went out and bought it. Like, but the Spain
yeah,
thing was a little fortuitous in a way. So essentially, what happened is I was living in Barcelona, and there was no game happening of the team at that time. So I was just wandering around Barcelona, and I have this strange habit of, picking up things that relate to football clubs or anything related to sport. So I saw this very nondescript looking philately shop, and it was just this hole in the wall thing in Barcelona. So I entered. I figured I'll just talk to the owner and try and I'll see if he has some stamps related to Football Club of Barcelona. So the man, it turns out, did not speak any sort of even Spanish. I spoke no Spanish. He spoke no Spanish. He only spoke Catalan. So I managed to somehow convey to him that I wanted something about football and Barcelona. So he went in, brought me a bunch of these first day covers that you get even in India, but then those were special first day covers for the Football Club of Barcelona on, I think, occasion of their 100th anniversary or something. So I said, sure, give me that. Then he gave me a bunch of these pins also. I think I might have them somewhere. So he gave me a bunch of these pins as well of Barcelona. So I said, great, how much and all of that. So while I was leaving, this man suddenly, decides to stop me and he says, hold on 1 second. Then he went inside and I was like, okay, maybe he wants to try and sell me something else. So he brings out a poster. It's a regular looking glossy page poster with like a Leo something written at the bottom. And so he can't speak English or Spanish at all. I can't speak Spanish or Catalan. So I'm trying to wonder what this is, and he's like, all he says is Leo. He points at the poster, which was a poster of Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
He points at the poster and then he points at himself and says, Leo me.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, so how much do you want for it?
Yeah.
So he says, no, free. And he puts it in an envelope and gives it to me. I was like, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I walk away. And that was the last day I was spending in Barcelona before I, came to India.
Yeah.
So the day I came to India, I was just unpacking my bags and I was like, okay, great. I got a free poster. And I figured that this was probably something that, it's one of those stamped on things.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like that big a deal. I thought it was, he was being generous. He was being exceptionally generous, but I thought it's something that you would get anywhere.
Yeah.
So then when I saw the envelope, it said the words Agrapusio Barca Jugadores, which I later Googled and I found out that it's an association of sorts for former Barcelona players, which helps other Barcelona players who've fallen on hard times, set them up in business and things like that.
Yeah.
So that is when I figured out that the guy who had actually given me this poster must have been like a Barcelona player, not really a big one, but somebody who at least played for Barcelona at some level, right?
Yeah.
So then I realized that the poster was clearly something that he had received from the guy.
Wow, that's a collector's item, man. I mean, that's insane. That story is right insane. Yeah, send me a photo later. I'll put that in. Okay. Yeah. No, but send me a photo later. I'll put it. I'll put it on the screen when we put the episode out. That's fascinating, though. That's brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you.
And the thing is, so he also gave me a card of his shop, right? So I tried writing to him. I saw an email ID. I saw that I traced him down on his Facebook account. So I tried writing to him, just thanking him, telling him that, hi, I'm so grateful that you gave me this. I haven't heard back from him, so I don't know. Hopefully, if he sees it, if he responds, great.
I'm unsure how much would he check his email, but I mean, for what he did, you'll remember him for life for sure. That's just something that sport does, isn't it? Yeah. I mean,
he had absolutely no reason to give it to me. I had already. It's not as if I was going to buy anything else. I was done.
Yeah.
And it's not as if I'm like a Spanish guy who is like a regular customer or anything. He just gave it to me out of the goodness of his heart, I would assume.
I have a very similar, but I mean, a more first degree kind of a story to share with you. I was my first FIFA tournament. I was appointed as a media officer. Was the Club World Cup in 2016 in Japan. And after the final finished, I think I was just wrapping up things. I was wrapping up the interviews and I was going from one place to another. Then I had helped this one guy to go from one place to another. He was being stopped by the security. He was a kit man for Real Madrid. So he said, thank you. And again, I don't speak any Spanish. So he said, I mean, I understood muchas gracias, but that's pretty much it. And I said, no,
Yeah.
no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And so he opened his bag and he basically had at least 100 pins in there, okay, of different
Right.
things. So he showed me pins of he was an old guy, but he showed me pins of at least 6 or 7 Champions League wins. Like, you know how you have these pins to commemorate each
Correct. Right.
championship, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he gave me one of those pins. So I mean, I'm sure he had tens of those, but I'm pretty very unexpected that I got a pin of a Real Madrid championship winning side. I think it was from 2002, basically the Zidane goal against Leverkusen. So, but very very surprising and something that I kind of hold very dear to. But thanks for sharing, Amit. Moving forward, though, and because you do seem to, cover a lot of these events now, and I hope you cover every event that you wish to. But if you had to create a wish list of, say, 5 events that you'd want to go and cover, which ones would they be? And
So,
they can be in time as well. That's not an issue. Yeah.
so honestly, I think I really want to go cover the Olympic Games in Tokyo this year. So it's I'm more or less sorted for that. Accreditation and all of that is done. We are only waiting to see what the situation there is, because right now so much is off that there are no direct flights and all of that. So there are a lot of complications. But I think if there is one Olympics to be covered, I think it should be that,
Yeah.
because see, international fans are banned. I'm not sure how many Japanese fans will actually be there. So it's essentially going to be history. Like, people keep saying this thing about journalism being the first draft of history. This is going to be, this is probably going to be the one time it is completely true of
Yeah.
sports journalism, because
I
I
mean,
don't think any other.
the world will see it
Sorry.
through your eyes one day. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that is one. I think one day I would like, probably would want to watch LeBron play in an NBA Finals again, where he actually wins. Because so I remember being in Cleveland in 2018 when the NBA Finals were happening, and I remember the 2 games that they played in Cleveland, and leaving with the rest of the fans, and the absolutely deflated city that Cleveland was back then. So I think I would really like to see LeBron win a title, uh, and I would like to be there when that happens. So maybe one NBA Finals, that would be great. Besides that, uh, maybe a football World Cup. I mean, it not the Qatar one maybe, but whenever the next one happens. So that. Besides that, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think
That's yeah.
maybe like something like a shooting World Cup. That would be a great experience, because I remember covering the junior shooting World Cup in 2019. I don't think they've ever had a foreign journalist coming to cover a junior shooting World Cup.
Yeah.
This was in this very small town in Germany called Suhl,
Okay.
SUHL.
Yeah.
And it was insane. I mean, Indian shooters were obviously doing exceptionally well. They came back with, I think, a handful of medals. So yeah, that makes me want to think that I would really want to cover the senior World Cups as well.
That's a
Yeah,
very
so
interesting
I think
choice.
that's, yeah.
Go on.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that I'm sure at some point you would want to be in the stadium when Arsenal lifts the Premier League trophy again.
I mean, I know this is like a wish list, but I don't want to be too
Too wishful.
drawn away from reality.
I'm sure someday, man. Someday it'll happen. Yeah. I mean, being a Liverpool fan, I can relate to that. So it did
No,
happen
but
in
then,
my lifetime. It
yeah,
did happen
yeah,
in my lifetime. Yeah.
yeah.
We are
So yeah,
otherwise used
maybe,
to heartbreak. Yeah.
yeah, we are.
No, but thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time, Amit. This was lovely catching up. And I had no idea you were going to Tokyo. I really hope you do manage to go to Tokyo and it works. And I would be eagerly looking forward to reading about the Olympic Games through your eyes. I'm a very ardent Olympic Games fan. So I'm
Yep.
looking forward to reading what you write and following what you do over there. And thank you so much, man. Thank you so much again. And I hope to do a round 2 after you're back from Tokyo.
Hopefully, if I get to Tokyo to begin with, I
I'll
would
be
love to
following
do
you.
that.
Don't worry. I'll be following you. Don't worry. I mean, not to the extent that I will be asking you every day that what happened today, but I'll be reading what you're writing and would be wishing that you were there actually, and it works out really well eventually.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. First of all, I don't think anybody takes an interest in listening to stories of sports journalists. Mostly, they want to know about stories of athletes. So yeah, this was great. Thank you so much.
I mean, there has to be a section of people who'd be interested in hearing out stories about the storytellers, right? I mean, it has to happen. So I just thought, especially because this is just purely out of interest. I do this and I catch up with friends, people who have interacted a lot in the past, and people who I would just love chatting like you. I mean, I would love chatting with you, standing in some media tribune somewhere. So why can't I do it and put it out for a bigger audience as well? That's the intent. But thank you so much again.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks so much,
Sure.
Aniket.
Anytime, man. Anytime.